Hello, Shalom Aleichem. Today we have an interesting Gemara Berachos. A Gemara Berachos from. It looks like originally was printed. It looks like it has Latin on it, so that means it's got a lot of age, a few hundred years at least. Let's take a look at it right now. Okay, so we have here, let's see. Oh, here, let's take a look at the front page. The Sharablot, let's see. Here it says, this is in Latin. 1711. Anyway, it's from 7. It's very ancient. Very ancient. So this must have been one of the first. Hamifarshim v'nescha'ot chadashim v'ktzat perushim be'ezu mekomos me'mesechet Berachos. Different mefarshim and then nuschos, that's different ways of writing it. Chadashim, they're writing the text. Chadashim, it's new. V'ketzos perushim. Some new Perushim commentaries be'ezu mekomos me'mesechet Berachos, from Mesechet of Berachos. Let's take a look at it. This is Chilufi Gersos, different types of learning it. Here, this is the text of the Berachos. So this appears to be a very ancient Gemara Masechet Berachos from the very beginning of the printing. Let's take a look at the Gemara Berachos. Me'emosai korein es shema ba'arvin misha shehakohanim nichnasim le'echol b'tromason ad sofu hashmura harishona. When can we say the Shema of the evening Shema, Kriyas Shema? Misha, from the time shehakohanim nichnasim le'echol b'tromason, from the time when the Kohanim, the priests, go in to eat of their truma. We'll find out what that means with Be'ezras Hashem. Ad sofu hashmura harishona, until the end of the first Mishmar, the first watch in the Beis HaMikdash, in the temple. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer, these are the words of Rabbi Eliezer. V'chachamim omrim ad chatzos, until midnight. Ad chatzos. Rabban Gamliel says, Ad sheya'ale amud hashachar, until the morning star rises. Maaseh uvanu bonov mi beis hamishte amru lo karinu es shema. There was a story that happened that his sons, one of the Tanaim that we're talking about over here, his sons came mi beis hamishte from they were having a chasana, a wedding or some celebration. And they said, we have not yet said the Shema. What can we do? So can we still say the Shema? In other words, they came late, so they wanted to know, can we still say the Shema? Omar lahem, he said to them, Im lo olo amud hashachar, chayovin atem lekros. If the morning star did not rise yet, if it didn't come up yet, chayovin atem lekros, you are still obligated to say the Shema. In other words, it is still nighttime. So in other words, it's not chatzos, it's not midnight, but it's until the morning star rises, which is right before the morning. Amru, and not only this, did they say, Ela kol ma she'amru chachamim ad chatzos, mitzvaso ad sheyale amod hashachar. Whenever the Chachamim said that the mitzvah is until midnight, or until the half of the, not quite midnight, it's until half of the night, mitzvah so ad shiyah le amud hashachar. The mitzvah is that you can do it until the morning star rises. In other words, the morning, meaning, I think, Amud HaShachar means the first ray of the sunlight. Amud HaShachar, that's the first ray of the sunlight, I am pretty sure. In other words, the very, very beginning of, when the first rays of the sun comes out. So that's the beginning of the morning. Hikter chalavim ve'ivarim mitzvasan ad shiale amud hashachar. If you put on the mizbeach chalavim ve'ivarim, different parts of the karbanos, mitzvasan ad shiale amud hashachar. The mitzvah is to do it until the amud hashachar, until the amud hashachar, until the first rays of the sun comes out. And all of the karbanos that are eaten for one day, so you can eat them. The mitzvah is to eat them until the morning, the first rays of the morning come up. In other words, you have it doesn't stop at the midnight. It stops when the first rays of the sun come up. Then in other words, you can eat it until then. Imkein lama amru chachamim ad chatzos. So they said. So then why did the chachamim? Why did the rabbanon say ad chatzos, until the midnight, until the half of the night? Kedei laharchik adam minhu aveirot, in order to keep a person from an aveira. In other words, if one thinks that one has until midnight, so then in the case of the Shema, one can say, I missed the opportunity to say the Shema. So therefore, it's the other way around. If one thinks one has the whole night to say the Shema, so one might put it off. Well, one can say, well, I have all night long to say the Kriya Shema, and so I'll say it later and later. In other words, we postpone it. But if we know that we have only until, if they say that we have till Chatzos, till half of the night, then we'll say, I have to hurry up and say the Shema, because otherwise I won't be able to have the opportunity to have the mitzvah of saying the Shema. But really, if it is after Chatzos, if it is after the half of the night, one still can say the mitzvah is still there. They did it to keep a person from an aveira, or else that they should still be able to do the mitzvah. In other words, if one thinks one has all night long, we can postpone it. If one thinks it's only until midnight, then let me make sure I do it. Zrizin makdim in the mitzvahs. There's a klal. Zrizin makdim in the mitzvahs. Those that are enthusiastic, they make sure to do the mitzvah. Makdimim, they do it right away. They do it right away. Let's see what it says. That when is it? Me'emos Aikaron es Shema be Arevin. When can we say the Shema at night? Mishosha Kohanim Nichnasim Lechol B'Trumasan. The time when the Kohanim are able to go and eat of the Truma. So let's see what it means by that. When is it the time that the Kohanim can eat the Truma? Kohanim shenitma'u v'tavalu v'heriv shimshon v'higia itam le'echol b'truma. So the Kohanim, let's say a Kohen became tummy, became impure, so then he cannot eat the Truma. The Kohanim have to be tahor, they have to be pure. In other words, tahor, that means ritually pure, ritually clean, rather, to eat the Truma. So Kohanim, a Kohen that became tamei, became impure, b'tavlu, and he went to the mikveh and he immersed himself in the water, the ha'eriv shemshon, and then so in other words, he has to wait until the sun goes down. After he immerses himself in the water, he goes to the mikveh. V'higia itam le'echol b'truma. So that's when the time comes to eat the truma. In other words, when the Kohen has to be pure, has to be tahor, so he has to wait. He has to go to the mikveh and then wait until the nightfall comes. So then, when the nightfall comes, then he can eat of the truma. So apparently, if he is not tamei, if he is tahor, then he can eat the truma right away. So this is talking about here where the Kohanim that were tamei, and then v'tavlu, then they immerse themselves in the mikveh, v'ha'eriv shimshon, and then so he has to wait. Not only does he need the tefillah, but tefillah means the immersion in the mikveh. He also needs that it has to be nightfall. He needs the tefillah and the mikveh, and also nightfall. Then it comes time to eat the truma. So in other words, that is the time when we can say the Kriyas Shema shel Arvis also. So in other words, the Torah is teaching us two things. The Talmud, the Gemara, is teaching us two things about the time of when the Kohanim can eat their truma, and also the time when, of course, one can say the Shema at night. Ad sofu Ashmura Harishona, until the end of the first watch. Shalish Shalayla Kedemefarish Begemara. This is a third of the night, like it says in the Gemara, Daf Gimel. Umisham be'elech Ovar Zman, and then after that, Ovar Zman, then the time has passed for saying the Shema. One according to the first Tana. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer. This is the word ad sofa shmura harishona, that one can say the Shema until the end of the first watch. This is what what Rabbi Eliezer says. Shlish halayla kedem mefarish b'gemara umisham ve'elach avar zman, the lo mikrei su zman shchiva, because then this is not called the time of shchiva, of lying down. It says by the Kriyas Shema that one should say it b'shachbecha, when you lie down, uvekumecha, and when you get up, when you rise up. So according to Rabbi Eliezer, after a third of the night, this is not called Zman Shchiva, the time of going to bed anymore. V'lo karinan bei b'shachbecha, and v'lo karinan bei b'shachbecha, and we do not read on this time after the third of the night. We don't read it b'shachbecha, when you go to lie down. Umekime hachi, and before this nami lav zman shchiva. Umekime hachi nami lav zman shchiva. Lefikach hakari kodem lachein lo yetza yedecha baso. Oh, so okay. Umekime hachi. So before this, before the time of the Kohanim going in to read to eat of their truma, which is the time of nightfall. Before this, in other words, it has to be nightfall when one says the Kriyas Shema of the night, because it says b'shachbecha, when you lie down. So before this, which is in the daylight still, nami lav zman shchiva, it's also not the time of lying down. Lefikach hakarei kodem lachein. Therefore, if one reads the Shema before this, lo yotze yedei chavoso, he is not yotze, he didn't fulfill the obligation of the Shema, of saying the Shema of the evening Shema. Imkein lama koren osa bebeis hakneses kedei la'amod b'tefila mitoch divrei Torah. So if that's the case, why do we read it when we go to Daven Ma'ariv in the shul? Why do we say the Shema at that point? Even if it might be before nightfall, sometimes it can be before nightfall, and we say the Shema in the Ma'ariv, in the evening services. So why do we do that? So Kedei la'amod b'tefillah mitoch divrei Torah. This is that when we daven and say the Shemona Esrei, the 18 tefillos, the 19 tefillos, when we stand and say the Shemona Esrei, we should say the Shemona Esrei mitoch divrei Torah, after divrei Torah, after learning the Torah, and the Shema is divrei Torah, of course. V'hachitanya beberis v'hachitanya beberisa beberachos Yerushalmi, and this was what we learned in the Brisa in Berachos in Yerushalmi, the Jerusalem Talmud. The Lefikach chova aleinu lekrosa mishetechshach. Therefore, it's an obligation of us to read it mishetechshach, when it becomes dark. Ubekriyas parshas rishona she'adam korei al mitasa yotza. And if one reads the parsha rishona, the first parsha of Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and then he reads also V'yohavto es Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol miyodecha. So in other words, he reads that first paragraph, that first parsha. So the Rashi says that if we when one reads that, Shadam Kari al Mitasa, that the person reads when he goes to sleep, Yotza, that he is fulfilled the obligation of saying the Kriyas Shema Shel Arvis. Ad Shiale Amod HaShachar, until the first rays of sun come up. Shekol halayla koroi zman shechiva. So according to this Tana, it's until the Amud HaShachar comes, until the first rays of light come. So in other words, the whole night is called the time of going to bed, of lying down, because it says b'shachbecha u'bikumecha, b'shachbecha, when you go to bed. Hekter chalavim ve'evarim. If one puts on the to smoke the chalavim ve'evarim shel karbonos, of the sacrifices, shenizrak damon bayom, their blood was put on the mizbeach bayom, in the daytime. Mitzvasan laha'alos kol halaylo ve'enan nifsalim be'lina ad sheyale amod hashachar. The mitzvah is to put it on. One can put it on the mizbeach the whole night. Mitzvasan laha'alos kol halayla. One can put on the mizbeach the whole night. Ve'ena nefsalan berlina, and it's not puzzle. It's not declared invalid. Puzzle means it's declared invalid. Berlina, of staying to the next day. In other words, once it becomes the next day, then we cannot put up the chalavim ve'evarim. Ve'ena nefsalan berlina ad sheyale amad hashachar. In other words, it's not possible by the din of lina, of having it for the next day, until the first rays of the sun come up. In other words, that whole time it's considered the nighttime, and one can put those karbonos on the mizbeach. Ve'hein lemata min hamizbeach. Ve'hein lemata min hamizbeach. Tichsiv lo yalin laboker. Ve'hein lemata min hamizbeach. This is under the mizbeach. Tichsiv, because lo yalin laboker. One shouldn't make it wait until laboker, until the daytime. So in other words, one has to have it, put it on the mizbeach at nighttime. In other words, before the first rays of the sun come up, because that's considered nighttime. Shemos Lamed Daled. Chalavim shel kol karbonos, Eivarim shel ola. Chalavim, the fat, shel kol karbonos, of all of the karbonos, Eivarim, the limbs, shel ola, of an ola. These are differences in one. The chalavim are of all of the karbonos, and the Eivarim, shel ola. V'chol hanechalim liyom echad, kigon chatos, v'yasham, v'chavasim. This ayin tzadik reish uminchos betoda, and everything that is eaten for a day. For instance, chatos, a sin offering, v'yasham, chatos, and a different kind of sin offering, v'kavasim, v'kipsei atzeres, I think, kipsei atzeres, umenachos v'toda, mitzvason, zman achilason, and it says mitzvason, the mitzvah is zman achilason, the time of their eating. Ad sheyala amad hashachar, until the first rays come up, rays of the sun. Who may vion lios nosar, the chsiv batoda lo yoniach mimenu ad boker. Who may vion lios nosar. So when the first rays of the sun come up, this makes it to be nosar. It means nosar means it was left over. Because it says batoda, by a toda, a thank offering, lo yaniach mimenu ad boker. You shouldn't leave it until the daytime. Vayikra zayin. V'chulam mitoda yolamadu. V'chulam mitoda milamdu. Everything is learned from the toda. Imkein lama amru chachamim ad chatzos. So if this is the case, so why did the chachamim say to ad chatzos, until chatzos? V'kriyas shma uva'achilas kadshim, from kriyas shma. It says you shouldn't. It says until chatzos, until the half of the night. V'kriyas shma uva'achilas kadshim, by eating kadshim. So why do they say until? One has until midnight if you have the whole night until the first rays come up of the sun. In order to keep a people far from doing an avera. V'yasram b'yachila kodem zmano kedei shelo yavo li'achlan li'achar amud hashachar. So the chachamim made the eating of it asur before the actual time. In other words, not the whole night until the Amud HaShachar comes up, but half the night. Kedei shelo yavo lechol liachar Amud HaShachar. In order that it shouldn't be, if one postpones it until that time, one can possibly eat it after the Amud HaShachar. Umechayev kares, and so then be chayev for kares. That's a certain punishment. V'chein b'kriyas shma chas v'shalom. V'chein b'kriyas shma, and the same thing as kriyas shma. The zareis es ha'adam shalo ya'omar yesh li od shahus. So the same thing with the kriyas shma. They said, the chachamim said we should do it until midnight in order that one shouldn't think we have the whole night to do it, and then not say it, chas v'shalom. Then during this time, the first rays will come, and then we don't have the mitzvah of the Shema at night. V'yover lo hazman, and the time will have passed. V'hekter chalavim dekatani hacha lo amru bo chachamim ad chatzos. Dekatani. Lo amru bo chachamim ad chatzos. Klal. Hekter chalavim, the ketani, and then it says hekter chalavim, when puts up the chalavim, that we learned. Hacha lo amru bo chachamim at chatzos. The chachamim didn't say until chatzos, until half the night klal. V'lo nakat lahu hacha ela lahodia shekol davar hanoeg b'layla kasher kala layla. So in other words, by the hekter chalavim, it didn't say by chatzos at all. But this goes to teach us something. That everything that is done, that is conducted at night, kasher kol halayla. It's kosher to do it the whole night. Here also we learned the Perik Sheni the Megillah. We learned the second Perik of Megillah, Dav Dailad. Kol halayla kasher leketziras ha'omer u'lehekter chalavim ve'erabim. It says in Megillah, Daf Nun, or it might be, it says Daf Nun. Kol halayla, Nun is the Daf 50, the 50th page. Kol halayla kosher leketziras ha'omer. The whole night is kosher for ketziras ha'omer, cutting down the omer, ulahaktir chalavim ve'evarim, and also to putting up on the mizbeach chalavim ve'evarim. So it says it specifically the whole night in Megillah Daf Nun. Kol halayla kosher leketziras ha'omer. The whole night is good for ketziras ha'omer. Ulahaktir chalavim ve'evarim. So it says it the whole night. It's specifically. So it does not say till half the night. So this is over here the Gemara of Berachos. So this is a very old, an old edition. It has Latin on it. It has Latin. Let's take a look at it again one more time. So this is like the beginning of close to the beginning of printing. So this is one of the like an earlier Gemara, an early Talmud. It's like one of the early ones. Okay, thank you very much. Kol Tuv. Zayt Matzliach.